Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. It is currently 7:45 p.m. on February 17th. We raided in about 3 hours, but about an hour ago, Blizzard released some really big changes for every single spec of Warlock in 9.0.5 PTR. Now, there's some legendary changes, there's some just basic spell tuning buffs, there's a lot of like actual Torghast, whatever those powers are called, tuning as well, and a handful of PvP changes along the way. So we're going to go over all of them here. We're going to talk about what I think this might mean and how things might change in later PTR builds. Now, I will say there has not been any conduit tuning for really any classes as far as I've seen yet. It looks like they might be rolling them out in cycles, being like class tuning into this build, legendary tuning in the next, maybe conduit or covenant into conduit tuning, depending on what covenants do and things like that. But also with some legendary buffs, there's some interesting covenant implications that could potentially be coming into play. Any week wars, profiles, or add-ons you see here, you can grab for free off my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out, ask any questions anytime, feel free to do so. Let's get into the video, starting off with the biggest, most exciting change, reversion. Okay, so if you guys have been keeping up with my channel, which by the way you should be, if you're not subscribed, feel free to hit the button. But realistically, if you guys have been keeping up with my channel and the Warlock changes in the first build of 9.0.5 PTR, well, unfortunately, Malefic Rapture had been nerfed. Well, that's been reverted. Malefic Rapture is back to the way that it currently is in 9.0. Now, I put a whole video out on this, honestly about a video and a half, and I want to dissect this change a little bit here. So our biggest complaints with this were that the biggest question was, what were they trying to target? Are they trying to target our single target damage? Are they trying to target our multi-dot, like burst with Rapture, which isn't necessarily as strong as our single target? We're well suited for burst windows on ads, so we can put dots up, but it's a bit of give and take there. What were they trying to do with the Rapture nerf? And that made me end up making a video on other things they could be doing, like buffing dot damage, buffing dark glare, things like that. Well, the actual change has been reverted, which honestly is a great thing. Whether you love AF or hate AF, let's be real here, Affliction does bring a semi-unique toolkit to a lot of fights. The big issue with the Rapture nerf in last week's build was that if this was a single target nerf, Rapture was really our only ability that really does damage. If you look at dots, if you look at singularity, our dark layer, our pets, they do less than 10% of our damage per application. I even compared logs in Legion to where dots were doing 15, 16, 20% of people's damage. They're doing 6, 7, 8% now. Rapture is like 40%. And that also has a lot of implications in Mythic Plus, because let's be real here, Affliction is not terrible in Plus. It's better than people think it is, but we're not a Fire Mage, we're not a Hunter, we're not a Windwalker, we're not a, meta DPS class. So a 20% nerf to Rapture's damage when it's about 35 to 40%, I believe, give or take in Mythic Plus, was going to be substantial. Aff was going to be knocked down a good bit, because it essentially nerfed how much damage Rapture does per dot on each target. So in a multi-dot setting, it hurt even worse than it would be a single target nerf. And I heard a decent bit from Arena's channel, Big Dog, mentioned that the Rapture nerfs, I mean, they were going to hurt a decent bit there too. Thankfully, that has indeed been reverted. That does raise a question though. It sort of does seem to imply that this was more or less a single target nerf, which to be fair, AF single target damage is very good. I think AF is one of, if not the highest skill cap classes in the game right now, with maintaining 8 dots in Rapture windows and Shadow's Embrace and all that stuff. But regardless, AF single target damage is very, very competitive. Probably one of the best in game. The question now though is, if they're still trying to target AF for a single target damage nerf, where do they really go? Because once again, AF's damage is really just based around, well, Rapture. You put up your dots, but all your dots do are your dots are essentially just buffs to your Rapture damage. So where do they really go with Affliction at this point? Now, if you're looking for a single target nerf, I think there are probably 2 ways to do this. You can't nerf dots, you can't nerf dark glare because they don't do anything in the first place. I think there are probably 2 ways they take this. We mentioned both of these in the previous video. The first one is just nerfing focus malignancy. But here's the thing. Malignancy deals 23% increased damage. Your Rapture does when you have Malignancy slotted in. This is like your Ashen Remains of Affliction. It's your go-to set it and forget it AF conduit. You don't really change off it because you have UA up in every setting, and a 25% damage increase roughly is a pretty good bit. I'm going to assume that if they want to nerf Malignancy, they're going to have, or for single target, they're going to have to nerf this conduit into the round, because the Rapture nerf was roughly 20%. Although the Rapture nerf was, I guess a bit of an AoE one as well, they're going to have to nerf Malignancy probably by a pretty good bit. I'm talking quite possibly almost down to like 10%, single digit percent increase. to try and reflect that single target damage nerf, which then opens the door of, hey, are they going to just, I think it's a good possibility that you just see malignancy changed if they go that route, because let's be real here, like, it doesn't sound very exciting buffing your UA or buffing your Rapture by 9%, 10%, whatever. I haven't run the math on it, but I mean, like I said, Rapture was a 20% nerf. I think there's also a possibility of them just actually redoing the conduit, but that's, you know, way too speculatory at this point. Outside of that, the second thing they could do, so Cold Embrace is also a conduit. The second thing that they could do, and I, as well as probably most of the, probably every single person that plays an Affliction at this point, would be to just remove Shadow's Embrace from the game. I mean, you can even make it a talent if you want. Just put it on a rower. I'm never going to take it. Put it on a rower as a better talent. Shadow's Embrace is, let's be real here, miserable to play with. It's a nightmare to juggle in 2 target and 3 target. You really just sort of forego it, which is awkward because it's a part of your baseline toolkit. It's not a talent anymore. It was replaced with Dark Caller. And even in single target, having a maintenance dot that lasts 12 seconds or so, it's just a bit annoying with mechanics of having to juggle Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, UA, Haunt, Singularity, Soul Rat, Raptures, everything. It's just annoying, and it feels sort of out of place. Now, they could also increase the duration on that. That's, you know, a different story for a different time. So the Rapture nerfs, Rapture has been reverted. I think if they're going to look at targeting AF for a single target nerf, most likely you're probably going to see some kind of change to focus Malignancy or Shadow's Embrace being removed, or I guess some change to it. But that also means that, hey, they're probably going to have to rework Cold Embrace, and I don't really know. I think a decent way to rework Cold Embrace would maybe just be shift the damage, like buffing Haunt, but Haunt's a talent, so I don't know. The more I think about it, it's tough. Maybe buff the damage of UA. I don't really know. They could probably rework it to some extent, but either way, Rapture is back to where it is in 9.0, and I am still expecting some kind of most likely some kind of single target nerf to AF at this point. But the good thing is Rapture is not going to be as big of a, it's not as big of a nerf in AoE, in arenas and things as it was initially. AF's back to the way it is, at least for now. And by the way, looking at some legendary changes, technically you can say maybe AF or certain versions of AF got buffed. Moving on here, let's get into those. I guess briefly I should mention here, I forgot there's some PvP talent changes. Amplified Curse, the cooldown was changed from 45 to 30. Casting Circle was, I think they just actually changed the tooltip on it. And Demon Armor was buffed from 90% to 120%. So a bit of a survivability increase as far as, you know, Demon Armor goes in arenas. Hey, I'll take it at this point. I love being part of the melee meat grinder. I love warriors and ret pellets killing me in 0.2 seconds. It's great. It's awesome. Regardless, moving on to the PvE legendary effect tuning. So Affliction has 2. Number 1, Malefic Wrath. This is the legendary that everybody was hyped for over the course of Alpha and Beta when we were playing Necrolord. And Drain Soul had, or Decimating Bolt gave 3 stacks of an increased Drain Soul at a much higher percent. Bolt was nerfed. The percent was nerfed. Malefic Wrath stayed the same. But there were 2 big issues with Malefic Wrath outside of that. Number 1, the damage increase. The 25% damage increase just wasn't enough to make a competitive single target, even with effects like Synergy or Agony Shard Gen on its own. You know, that's not including like any weird Covenant interaction and stuff, because if you factor in Necrolord, okay, it has more power, but everyone's Night Fate at this point for the most part. So that's the first thing. The flat 25% to 35% damage buff is good. It's relevant. It certainly helps out a lot. The bigger thing here, though, the actual duration was increased from 8 seconds to 10 seconds. This might not seem big, but it actually is. Malefic Wrath gives you an awkward rotation, makes you follow a different rotation for Affliction unless things have changed as far as sims are concerned. But one of the big things with Malefic Wrath in Alpha and Beta, even playing Necrolord, even after it was nerfed to like 1 stack of Drain Soul versus 3 and all that, was that 8 seconds for this buff is really, really awkward. Because once again, you're juggling Agony, Corruption, Siphon, UA, Haunt, Singularity, Soul Rot, Shadow's Embrace. You're juggling everything. And you don't want to have Shadow's Embrace down when you go into your Decimating Bolt, or I guess whatever you're casting, you know. The 2-second duration increase here is actually really big, and I think will go a long way with this effect if it ends up being worthwhile. It still stacks to 3, so you're still good there. Everything's basically the same outside of that, but it gives you more time. So more time to cast spells, refresh dots. Number 2, this gives you more time for more shard gen to actually space out your raptures a bit more if you're trying to maintain this effect for a while. So there's more to this buff than, hey, oh yeah, I got a 10% damage buff. It's actually a bit more relevant. Now, I don't know where this is going to place Malefic Wrath. I might try and do a sim video this weekend so I can figure out how to alter all the legendaries and stuff, but we'll get to that at some point because BlizzCon's here. Second change here to Wrath of Consumption. This is, I feel, Wrath Wrath of Consumption is an interesting effect because this was very, very big and a very large part of Legion Affliction's toolkit. They've increased the periodic damage amp you get from 5% to 6%, which means that 5 stack is going to be 30% instead of 25. Now, this increases dot damage, agony, corruption, siphon life, whatever dots you have, singularity, soul rot. This also increases drain soul's tick damage. It does work for drain soul. It's a periodic channeled effect. They also increased or changed its legendary before to now have agony or corruption on your target, giving you the effect. It used to just be agony. So having corruption also give this effect if the target dies is big, because it's much easier to cast a seed on a target, pop it on a pack that's going to die fast, and still chain the stacks. On top of the 1% damage increase, which is 5% at 5 stacks, they've increased the duration from 20 seconds to 30. That's huge. That's huge. That's really big, man. So the big thing with Wrath of Consumption is that you want to be chaining the effect from pack to pack. You want to get that 5 stack and roll it. You know, looking back to like Neltharion's Lair or at the start, or the dungeons in the past, even current, where you want to get in there, you want to pull the packs, you want to get that 5 stack, and you want to keep it rolling. Now, yes, our dots don't deal as much damage in Legion, but this effect was nerfed to lower than this percentage later on in Legion because it was too OP, and it also wasn't 30 seconds. So the 10-second bonus there is going to give you a lot more leeway to chain this effect in Mythic Plus, even on certain boss fights, depending what you're doing. Like, this could be a pretty substantial damage increase. I'm not even going to get into double legendary territory because that's, you know, everyone's tired of hearing about that and just baseless speculation. But the Wrath of Consumption buff is actually pretty big. I wouldn't necessarily be totally surprised to see this pop up in certain keys where you might be able to get a lot of value. Thinking out loud, Theater of Pain, potentially. Even though Theater is sort of single target oriented. Theater, maybe like Mist. But I don't know, we'll see. Because Mist is sort of like a stop and go kind of dungeon. Sanguine Depths, maybe. Halls of Atonement, this is probably pretty good as long as you're chain pulling. Wrath of Consumption gains a lot of value. Demonology legendaries. 3 buffs here. These are also pretty big. Bale Spider's Burning Core. Damage essentially doubled. Essentially just doubled. They added 5 seconds onto the duration here. For the most part, it really wasn't hard to maintain. There were a few times in later beta testing after they changed this, based off the Warlock feedback document for what it's worth, where it dropped, but it was just more or less me not really paying attention and trying to dump a lot of actual Demon Bolt stacks, because of Born of Blood and, you know, Dreadstalkers expiring and Imps, all that, you do get backlogged a little bit. Either way, this damage increase is going to be pretty big, because it's not 32% anymore, it's 60. So you're essentially doubling the damage, and, well, the 5 seconds is something. Now, once again, this does sort of feed into Demonology's weird niche single target toolkit, which, hey, nobody loves, but it is what it is. And if this could be a single target contender for Demo heading into the next patch, whether you end up, you know, playing Necrolord with this for the extra damage amps or not, it's still a thing. And there's a lot of talents like Sack Souls that play well with Bale Spider's Burning Core, in a sense. Grim Inquisitor's Dread Calling, minor buff. Seems like a minor buff. But this is 1%. This is a 25% buff. It's 1% per soul shard spent. So if you spend 3 soul shards, let's say on a Hand of Gul'dan, you used to get 9%. Now you're going to get 12%. I think the average for this effect was like 20%, 20 to 25, I believe, in testing. So, I mean, you're looking at about what, like a 30, 35-ish percent like mark instead of 25. It's actually pretty decent. Now, this will change a bit depending on haste levels and things also, but it's something. This legendary was underperforming a bit, and I'm not crazy surprised to see it buffed. I don't know if it'll change a whole lot. That's something you have to just sim with and test, but hey, you know, underperforming legendaries, buffs, this is what they mentioned. The big one here to me, implosive potential. Yes, it still gives 1% haste when you implode on a single target or less than 3, but the duration has been increased by 50%. Even after the buffs to this being it gave haste in single target, albeit a lot less, the duration just felt a little short. Now, EP in BFA was 15 seconds, I believe. 8 seconds felt a little short, to the point where you almost couldn't set up another implosion on trash packs in Plus, because you'd implode for an insane amount of haste, but then, cool, I have to start my implosion rotation basically again to refresh that buff before it falls. So it was strong, but this duration increase is actually really big. Implosive potential is pretty solid in Plus, in Sims, and from what I've seen. The problem is it's very narrow. It's a Demonology AoE legendary for the most part, but the added extra value this is going to get, this is going to further increase this thing in Mythic Plus by a good bit. And depending on final tuning for 9.0.5, I would definitely keep my eyes on implosive potential. This is solid. Hey, you know, I guess you can implode a single target too. Have some fun. Why not? Destro, we have one buff. That's it. Madness of Azakira's buff from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. I felt that this could have been a warranted thing. I wouldn't. It almost feels like it needs to be a little longer. I'll be real with you here. The extra second probably lets you squeeze in another con flag or something maybe in between the bolt cast. But I wouldn't mind seeing this like 5-6-ish seconds. I don't think it would be crazy OP, maybe a little bit, but the 3 second window was more or less, hey, you have to like bolt and then con flag fast and bolt again. You can't really do a whole lot, which one leads to an awkward scenario with eradication if you're playing that, and number two, it just sort of made for awkward sequencing at times and havoc windows, depending what you were doing and stuff. Although to be fair, you typically dumped bolt, conflict, bolt either way. This will help a little bit. I'll take it. I don't think it's going to make Madness fast or anything. I wouldn't hate a minor damage buff to this because Chaos Bolt, let's be real, still hits like a wet noodle, but I'd take it. I think looking at all three of these, Demo came out on top for legendary buffs. Let's be real here, Demonology probably needs it. Followed by Aff with a potential for a big plus with Wrath, maybe even, well, I guess both Wraths, depending which one you want to look at. And Destro, hey, this might be a little bit better than it seems. Let's talk a bit about some general changes. General. I actually have no idea what I was saying there. It's general. But either way, I would know that because I wiped on Soul Legion Generals for 3 weeks. What a great boss fight. Anyways, so the general changes here are more or less anima powers. Typically, I skip over a lot of these. Once again, we already covered the PvP ones here. Demon Arm buff, Casting Circle, and Amplified Curse. Rapture, legendary buffs. But there's actually a handful of them that are, I think, sort of impactful. And hey, let's be real here. I have 4 layers of Torghast to do still for my mount. So Bottled Shadow, gaining a stack of Soul Remnants Blessing increases your pet's damage by 200 for 30 seconds. This is fine. I don't know. It's one of those weird ones like, hey, if you're going to pull a boss or whatever, it's awesome to have. Typically, I get these at the end of every level, so it's irrelevant. But hey, you know, I guess you can carry it over. I guess it's okay. Either way. Detonation Torch. The damage of your, I guess, Shadow Bolt and Demon Bolt? Incinerate? Drain Soul? What did they change this to? Oh, they changed it from Implosion. They changed it from your AoE spells. So the damage of your Shadow Bolt and Demon Bolt, yeah, is increased by 75. Okay. The damage of your Incinerate is increased by 75, and the damage of your Drain Soul and Shadow Bolt is increased by 75. This is a fine change. Let's be real here. Like, these were all irrelevant. I mean, it's sort of whatever. Like, I wasn't trying to see the corruption in the entire platform. It really wasn't that big of a deal. They sort of felt like just random set it and forget it trades. It's probably a bit of a buff either way. I don't really think I paid much attention to any of these at this point. And hey, it's a substantial damage buff, to be fair. Inferno Skewers is removed. Damage is increased by implosion damage is increased by 75. So they essentially swapped these. Damage is increased by 75. Implosion damage, Rain of Fire, implosion, Rain of Fire, and Seed of Corruption increased by 75. So I guess they sort of made a swap here-ish, but it's not range, it's actual damage. I guess that's fine. Yeah, they removed the crit and just added actual damage in. That's fair. It's fine. And honestly, it probably makes a little more sense too for smoothing and things. One big change here that I read a bit ago: Pact of Thickness. Your primary summon demons have 50% more health, which is what it is now, and deal 50% more damage. Now, I'm curious to see if they're going to remove some powers in here, because we already have, I think it's Hellfire Pact that increases our damage by 50%. So Pact of Thickness and Hellfire Pact. My Felguard already one-shots like mini bosses in here with a handful of things stacking and actually getting Infernal Intimacy stacked up enough. This is actually a pretty substantial buff. Demo already tore up Torghast, and now it's going to be even more crazy, but hey, I'm down for it. A brief buff to Smoking Shard Teleportation, giving you a more reduced damage with your circle teleport. Irrelevant, I suppose, to a certain extent, but yeah. The other big change here, a bit disappointing. Fear no longer instantly kills Maw Rats. It's when you're struck by a melee auto attack, you fear nearby enemies. It's fine. It's cool. But let's be real here. The Maw Rat build was so much fun. Stacking Maw Rat explosion damage traits and fearing them, killing a whole room. It's a lot of fun. Now it's gone, but it's what it is. And TLDR, Pact of Thickness changes, legit buffs to your main filler, and I guess buffs to like AoE instead of crit damage. Not too bad. So yeah, like I said, honestly, I'm pretty happy with these changes. The Rapture Reversion is going to be a good thing. I would assume next build you're probably going to see, I would assume Covenant tuning, and then probably conduit tuning, because covenant abilities might dictate what they do with conduits. It seems like they're trying to space out. This is the first one being a class tuning, then legendaries, then this, then that, but we'll see where it goes. Either way, this reversion's a good thing, because it would hurt us a lot more in PvP, and honestly a lot in Mythic Plus too. And let's be real here, Aff solid and plus, it's better than people think. Destro's fine, but we're not meta, and nerfing our only ability that really deals damage is probably not going to make us any better. Now, this does most likely mean that Dark Lair is probably going to stay the same, and dot damage is probably not going to be increased, but hey, you know, this is the world we live in. Let's be real here. I'd rather be a good spec than, well, you know, a mediocre one with cool abilities, right? Because tuning is a slippery slope. As far as legendaries go, once again, hey, nice demon armor buff. I think Wrath of Consumption and Malefic Wrath, both solid buffs here. This could be solid depending on what happens with Knife Warlords. If they revert Decimating Bolt to 3 stacks or whatever, the actual duration increase here is big. It's extra time to cast dots, refresh things, extra time to generate shards and space out your raptures, which is really nice. And the Wrath of Consumption change, solid. Can be really good in Mythic Plus, or maybe even a couple fights, looking at like Sun King Salvation, maybe. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. I'm down for some Wrath of Consumption play at a certain point, but let's be real here. I'm way behind on Soul Ash. I think Demo came out on top with Bale Spiders, Grim Inquisitors, and Implosive being buffed. Implosive is going to be even more insane in Plus. I've wanted to make this for a while. I just don't have enough Soul Ash. This is going to be really, really fun when you're pulling multiple packs over and over and over. And if your tank is willing to pull a couple packs onto a boss with you or for you, you're going to destroy. This is going to be insane. This is essentially back to like BFA, like duration as far as haste is concerned. And honestly, if you're imploding like a 9 imp implosion, you're looking at what, 45% haste increase? Like, that's insane. Actually insane. That's 3 targets, but hey, you know, demonology, limited toolkit, stacked AoE, single target cleave. This could be good once again. And Bale Spiders, we'll see where it goes. Necrolord, Sack Souls things could interact nicely here, but you know, it's what it is. I wish Demo or Destro would have seen a little more love here, to be fair. But once again, the Havoc Legendary, I don't really know what you do. Like, you have Havoc Legendary and Incinerate Shard Gen outside of this. I'm not really sure what else you change there. Like, up the Shard Gen of Incinerate. I mean, it sort of feels like Burning Embers, maybe, sort of, in a sense, but I mean, it's just not strong enough. And the only thing you can really do is buff the actual Shard Gen, which would increase Chaos Bolts and things and just be a larger damage buff in the end. But I think Cinders is fine, and Madness is probably the only one that they could change like this to make it that easy. So, yeah. I think Warlock came out pretty well. Not a single nerf across the board, unless you're looking at Torghast stuff. Let's be real here. Once I have Twisting Corridors done, I'm not going in here again unless I have to for, you know, things outside of Soul Ash. TLDR, Rapture, Reverted, all is, well, sort of right in the world for today. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope I did a good enough job covering the changes for you guys today in this semi-rushed video. We have raid in about 2.5 hours now, but I really wanted to get this video out to you guys before raid because I got to be up early tomorrow, and I didn't want to be up till 7 in the morning, and hey, changes are here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. You can also swing by my stream and ask there. I'll probably be live in about an hour and a half now. Just look at the date in this video. Chances are high I'm streaming anyways, but look at the date either way. Any questions in the comment section, drop them. I'll be sure to get back to you. Any Week Wars profiles or add-ons you see here, you can grab for free off my Twitch as well, or Discord if you want to swing by, hang out, ask any questions anytime. Feel free to do so. I will indeed be covering the rest of the Warlock changes over the course of 9.0.5 and 9.1 as well. So if you want to see that or more WoW content, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe button down there as well. Thanks again, dudes, and I'll catch y'all again, actually in about an hour and a half here, maybe a little less, on stream. Peace.